but we're just gonna get started. So I've been doing a lot of Reg G stuff, and I've got an 80% GXC in Reg G BO3. Also came second in a 80-player wide league tournament, and I got a pretty good record and only lost to basically an unwinnable matchup. Like, I don't know what Calyrex is meant to do to Garganacl, so I have a pretty good understanding of the meta. And today we're going to be going over the best cores, how to team build, what I think will do really well in the World Championships, some of the meta adaptations and how the meta is going to progress, and a lot of the things that are going on with the team. So let's just start off with the type-ins. In Reg G, there's not many good steel types or poison types. For example, no one's using Heatran. Iron Moth is really used like Okie Dokie. The only good poison type is basically like Limora. Archelodon is only used on rain teams where Flash Cannon is an 80 base power move, so doesn't do much damage. Tinkaton's never used. Registeel uses Heavy Slam, but like Registeel is not used. Kingambit uses Iron Head, but a lot of the times it's a Black Glasses set with Quarter Cleave, so you don't even get to use Iron Head, and even so, like, it can get out damaged, out paced, and just one shot. Like Kingambit, it's not bad. It definitely will be used on a lot of teams, but it's not the best steel type. It's not like anything like a Rillaboom or an Insane that's a staple on all the teams. Golden Go just gets like outpaced by pretty much all the legendaries like Kyogre, Calyrex, and Gudra runs on not the best either. But if we go to the fairy types, right now they're going to really pop off here, as especially a support role. So things like Comfey and Clefairy and Grimmsnarl, they're going to be very, very difficult to get off the field in this meta because there's just not many ways to hit them other than Zacian. But like Zacian just gets Intimidate spammed. So I feel like Comfey with Incineroar, which we saw in this wide league tournament, did very well. It actually placed first with like Terrapagos. I don't think you have to use Terrapagos. You could probably, but I think Clefairy and Incineroar is a way of enabling the restrictions to stay around for longer. It's going to be very beneficial, especially because it's just pretty much impossible to get off the field at the moment until we find a really good way to use these poison steel types, such as Kingambit and Glimmora, and try and make them more meta staples so those cores don't get away with it, with just like running away with the game. Now, we've got the cores, and the cores right now are really trying to damage most of these Pokemon, outpace the healing that the balance teams do while trying to stay good against the hyper offense teams with speed control so you can beat them. Here is the team that I did really well in the wide league. I'll put the pace in the description. I use Choice Specs Calyrex Shadow with Terra Normal because it beats most of the other Calyrex Shadow teams. It's just like so much damage. I think like after +1, it's just two-shotting Incineroar with Astral Barrage, which is disgusting. Urshifu is really, really, really good. One of the things you can do with Farigiraf, which I used against Sableye VGC, another really good streamer, is he led Kingambit Incineroar, which is a great lead into Calyrex Shadow. You can't really do much about that. But I also use Urshifu. So what this does, it kind of pins them not to Terra. So you kind of force to fake out the Urshifu, not Terra, the Kingambit, or after Terra Normal, you're just going to get two-shot. And this is a really bulky Calyrex Shadow, so it always lives Surging Strikes from Terra Water, Choice Scarf, Max Attack, Urshifu. And because of that, 2 Quarter Cleaves actually do not KO it. So he couldn't Terra. And what I did with Farigiraf is you can just switch that in and then use Close Combat to carry the Kingambit. So it's quite good of a team. The main problem was that I had is it literally has nothing to hit Comfey. Like you can see, I beat all these other players, but they didn't have any fairy types. Like fairy types are really hard to come by. Like this team has no fairy types. This is Fluttermane, but Fluttermane was weak to Astral Barrage. There's no real pure fairy types. A lot of people are using the Fairy Terra though, because I think Fairy Terra is the best Terra type on most mons. Though you don't only want to use Fairy Terra, of course, because if you only use Fairy Terra, you're not getting a wide variety of Terras, which means they do have these mons, you can still get KO'd. And with Terra types, you kind of want to be beating the most amount of things possible with the option that you have, if that makes sense. But what I was saying is there's just not many Fairy types in the format right now. So that's why I could beat all these teams. But when it actually did come across Comfey, there's nothing I could really do. Like my team literally can't hit Comfey if it's positioned well. I really tried to use Psyshock and Astral Barrage, but then they could just play around that with their own Urshifus. They could set up. What they did is they let me actually carry the Terrapagos. The Terrapagos matchup is fine because I can on-call them into Calm Mind. I can use Close Combat plus Psyshock in combination to carry them. But they just use Comfey with Trick Room, and I just lost after that because Draining Kiss, like they one-shot my Rigoroth. They forced me to Terra Normal with Urshifu Dark, and it was just like Comfey plus Urshifu Dark literally just destroys Calyrex Shadow Urshifu combinations. So I do think, and it'll be the same with Clefairy. Like Clefairy, I don't know if you want Terrapagos. I don't think Terrapagos is that good in the format because you can't force to Terra it or just sack it. It's just not that good. But I think Comfey and Clefairy with these teams with like a balanced core, it's going to be very, very, very good. It's kind of weird because we never really had this in a format, but it's like Tapu Fini in previous formats almost with Heal Pulse on those Dynamax Mons. It's a bit like that, except the reason that we're using Comfey here is just because it can't get KO'd and it just makes the whole team more bulky. So it's quite good. But what I was going to say is you got to really try and figure out ways to beat these fairy types with stuff like Iron Head or like out damage them with Electro Drift. This is one of the teams I use for Mareeoh. It's quite good. We got like Tornadoes. It's like matchups are really, really good. Just heaps of damage. It beats like Calyrex Ice with King Gambit for Rigoroth quite easily. With Psychic Noise, it stops any regeneration from Comfey, which I think Comfey is going to be really good. So you kind of do want some way to stop healing or just outpace the healing, like with Encore or something like that. And then this can use like Follow Me. Volt Switch can pivot around if they're using Rillaboom into like Ogerpon, switch around with that. Like it's just a really good team. So I'll also put this one in the description. This is what got me to 80% GXC on the ladder. So Mareeoh's also really, really good. Another thing is Groudon. Groudon's a really, really good mon. Basically because nothing like can switch into Precipice Blades except for like Rillaboom. And then even so you got like Gouge Fire. Because if you look at all the really good restricteds, like Calyrex Ice doesn't take a heat crash. Nothing. It doesn't switch in well on Precipice Blades either, especially after a +1 Howl. You could also use Morning Sun. Like I'm using Cover Cloak so I don't get faked out with Terra Grass. And then what you can basically do is just spam Morning Sun Howl next to Groudon with Substitute, because then it just beats the balance call. Like Gouging Fire plus Groudon just beats balance. There's not much they can do. And then you can force them to go hyper offensive mode with Calyrex, for example, and then just use King Gambit and Rillaboom with Terra Normal to knock off against those really hyper offense teams. So for example, it's hyper offense Mareeoh, like Rillaboom and Fluttermane really, really just destroy that. King Gambit, Rillaboom are really, really, really good into like Kyogre and stuff. And Kyogre, after you use these two, you can switch in and get your Sun up. And I think Groudon's definitely one of the best mons. I'm very wary of bringing it to the World Championships though, because Precipice Blades can miss. And when you're playing that many sets, because if you get to day 2, you've already played about 9 sets of games. Every single game you're probably going to be bringing Groudon and clicking Precipice Blades, and eventually going to miss a few of those. So it's like that's the trade-off. It's really, really good, but it can hit, it can miss. So it's up to you if you want to rely on hitting those moves. And I've also got Garganacl. I think Garganacl is really good. Many people are writing this Pokemon off because it doesn't straight up beat something. Like it's not going to 1v1 a Calyrex Shadow, because Calyrex Shadow does outpace Garganacl. But what they're not looking at is the mons that surround Garganacl that allow it to be such a good, valuable mon. For example, it's like Garganacl can't really KO Kyogre, but it can enable things like Calyrex Shadow to live with things like Wide Guard and get a few moves off. Or it can chip everything down. I think this is why I use it with Calyrex Shadow. I think it's very good. It's also got Purifying Salt, where Ash Barrage can't do like basically any damage to it, which I think is very good. It's got Wide Guard for Glacial Lands, Water Spout, Precipice Blades, which really enables all these monsters to pivot around a lot easier. Like Incineroar does not want to be pivoting around when Precipice Blades is on the field, but you can allow it to do so with Wide Guard. And then you can go for Knockoff, get the Clear Amulet off. They're not really doing any damage because Heat Crash doesn't hit either Garganacl or Incineroar, and then you can really try and get away with that after. Or instead of Garganacl, you can also use things such as like Tinlu, because Tinlu uses Sand Tomb to lock things in, and then you can kind of like pivot around, chip them down, and then just use this. Also got a really nice set here on Calyrex Shadow with Calm Mind and Draining Kiss, with Terra Fairy and Wiki Berry, because this set allows you to survive basically everything just enough so you can like proc that Wiki Berry, and especially after a few Calm Minds you can. Survives Electro Drift also, so then you get Wiki Berry, then you get Calm Mind, then the next time you go for Draining Kiss, Terra Fairy, and you're already up to full on a Mareeoh, and then they just can't damage you again. So that's basically how you beat Mareeoh on this team. And Garganacl helps with all the other matchups. So This team's also really good. I'll just put all my teams in the pokepastes. I'm not planning on using these yet for Worlds, but they're very good just for like practice, kind of learning the format. And then the last team I'm just going to go over. I don't think Zacian's good or Terrapagos, by the way. I think the format will develop to beat them quite easily with the new balance cores. And I think Mareeoh and Kingambit will pick up on usage as a way to stop them, or Psychic Noise on Farigiraf, because these healing cores, they're not going to be that good, except for this one, which is Porygon 2, Calyrex Ice, Incineroar. Then we got Amoonguss, Fluttermane, and Urshifu. Now, like the EYC winning team that Niels Dunlop used, it's got a very good balance mode between Incineroar, Amoonguss, P2, Urshifu, and Fluttermane. Like, it's very hard to get off the field. And then you've also got Calyrex Ice, which you are going to bring to most games because it is like the mon that you're going to click Trick Room with. But the thing is, unlike Ursaluna, this mon also has Trick Room, so you're not forced to bring P2. It gets Glacial Lance. It's really bulky. Like, you don't even have to have it in Trick Room because it can just like live and switch around on hits against Groudon teams. Like, if you don't want to use P2, you can just use Calyrex, which is really, really nice. And then against other teams, you can just do that. Or you can start off with Fluttermane, Urshifu, get a lot of damage off. Against hyper offense teams, Porygon 2 is so good. I'll show you why. I think Porygon I'll show you the best set I think Porygon 2 has, which is Trick Room, Foul Play, Eerie Impulse, and Recover. And you're not going to be doing as much damage because you're not using Ice Beam or Terra Blast. But the main reason for that is Glacial Lance is going to be picking up most of the KOs anyway, now that we've got restrictors in the format. And now you can also use Eerie Impulse to make everything do less damage. Foul Play against really strong physical attackers, which is really, really good, especially like against Calyrex. Like, this P2 just beats Calyrex. Like I said, Fairy types are really, really good. So I do think P2 with Terra Fairy is just a really, really busted mon, because now the poison type, not the poison types, now the fighting types just can't hit you. You can just spam Recover. Against everything else, you can kind of just go Eerie Impulse against special attackers and basically just try and live a few special attacking hits, as most of the things that do hit Fairy are going to be those physical attackers, but there's just not many of them. And then also against physical attackers, you got Foul Play, so you want to be more specially defensive. But then you just got Recover, and you've also got Incin for the physical attackers. Also, one thing about Incin I want to point out is you probably want Will-O-Wisp, because a lot of the mons, such as such as Calyrex Ice, such as Groudon, stuff like that, are using the clear amulet item, which means Timidate really doesn't do much. Although using like Kingambit, Defiant, stuff like that, it's running everywhere. So you really want Will-O-Wisp as a way to just like slow them down. You can also just use Amoonguss, but it depends. If they have a lot of Amoonguss counters like Ogerpon, or just like ways around Amoonguss, like a lot of mons are just picking sub on like their random Terrapagoses or Calyrex Shadows just to beat Amoonguss with Spore. So, but against some of those things, you can break their sub and then just use Will-O-Wisp just to chip them down, and it's a lot harder for them to recover while in sub. But I do think a team like this could do really, really well, and I might make a video on it later. It's been quite a quick video, but that's my kind of take on how Reg G is going to perform. Sorry, it's not edited, but if you don't have a good enough attention span to watch this, then that's your problem. I'll be trying to give a pretty good insight into how the world's shaping up and what I'm going to be bringing and stuff like that, and also ways to practice and stuff if you are going to World Championships and what to look out for. So yeah, thanks for watching. Please subscribe, comment down below anything you want to see from me, or if you want me to change my style of videos. But goodbye.